something like nailed it or good job will make a writer's day. Hello and welcome back. My name is Tara East. I'm a writer, blogger, YouTuber, and the author of the mystery novel Every Time He Dies. And in today's video, I want to talk about how you can be a good beta reader. It is oh so helpful to get the feedback from your fellow writers and reader friends by enlisting them to be beta readers of your work. But becoming a beta reader for someone else is an equally rewarding experience. Plus, it's a way to give back to the writing community. However, some writers may struggle to disassociate their writing self from this process. For this reason, I thought it might be helpful to outline some of the key things to keep in mind whenever a friend asks you to beta read their work. Number one, ask for clarification. Now, this may seem super obvious, but some writers don't tell their beta readers what kind of feedback they're looking for. If this is the case, it is well worth clarifying. Ask the writer if they'd like to hear your overall impressions, or if they'd like a more detailed response where you list what is working and what isn't working within every single chapter of the whole novel. Would they like your feedback on any punctuation or grammar errors? Would they like comments regarding the structure? Would they like for you to underline any sentences that pushed you out of the story, felt odd or heavy-handed? The number one reason why you need this clarification is because sharing your work with somebody else is incredibly vulnerable. Depending on the writer and where they are in their writing life, their writing process, then they may not be in a position where they can actually handle criticism about their work. Instead, they might just simply be looking for encouragement. When you know what kind of feedback the writer is looking for, it is much easier to focus your attention while reading. Number two, you are not the author of this work. As a writer, this is one of the trickiest ones to master. Remember, you're not revising this manuscript as though it were your own. You're not looking at this book thinking about how would I write it. You need to think about what advice can I give that's going to help this writer write the best book they can write. Be sure that whatever suggestions you make are not personally based on what you would do or what your personal taste is regarding voice, style, or structure. Instead, you need to think like an editor. What needs to happen to make this story better? Not how would I write it? Number three, take plenty of notes. While you're reading, be sure to take note of any passages you find dull or confusing. Regardless of what feedback the writer is looking for in particular, I think every writer would appreciate having a heads up on any sections that felt unclear in the work. Number four, pay attention to the big picture stuff and the details. Novels are big, beautiful beasts. But sometimes it can be tricky to keep an entire novel in your head. Now, for this reason, it is really great to get feedback from someone else from whom the story is brand new and completed. When beta reading, pay attention to the big picture stuff in the novel, things like structure, character arcs, the shape of the narrative, the POV, and voice. Details would be more line level suggestions, things like word choice, punctuation, description, and sentence structure. Now, please note that even as a reader, it can be very difficult to hold the macro and the micro in your head during one single reading. And this is where I'd suggest that you read the book through once while making any obvious sort of notes, and then go back and reread the manuscript a second time to confirm if those initial thoughts are indeed true, and be sure to highlight any specific passages that are relevant to those impressions. Number five, make a suggestion. While you are not the author of this book, it feels really crappy when someone points out a fault without offering a solution. Bear in mind that while it is easy to identify when something isn't working, it can actually be very difficult to articulate why something isn't working and how to fix it. When writing up your critique of a manuscript or when meeting the writer in person to discuss your thoughts, reassure that writer that any feedback you offer is only a suggestion and that of course it is up to them whether or not they wish to implement that advice. Now the writer knows this, but they will appreciate hearing that you know this, and that you're not going to be personally offended if they don't take your suggestions on board. Phrasing your suggestions needn't be difficult. If something in the manuscript strikes you as awkward, clunky, or problematic, you may write something like, "This dialogue reads a tad stiff." Perhaps say something like, and then make your suggestion. Or, "This word could be triggering for some readers. Might I suggest?" Or, "The description here is overly long, maybe consider shrinking it." Being critical of a work doesn't mean you have to act like a jerk, nor does it mean that you have to tiptoe around the author's feelings by burying your meaning in flowery language. Aim to be short and to the point, but also polite. As a beta reader, you are looking for all the ways the book isn't working, but that doesn't mean that all your feedback has to be negative. If you read a passage that is poetic, or an exchange of dialogue that makes you smile, let the author know, because you might save that particular element from being cut later. Be sure to draw a smiley face, a little heart, or a double tick if you're editing on paper, or leave a positive comment if you're using track changes in Word. Something like "nailed it" or "good job" will make a writer's day. On that note, whether you write up your feedback or if you meet that person in person to discuss the book, be sure that you're sandwiching your feedback by having something positive to begin with, like, "I loved your protagonist. They really had guts." Followed by a critique, "The timeline doesn't add up," and then end with another positive comment. Something like, "The descriptions of the setting are impeccable. I felt like I was there." Beta reading can be incredibly fun and a wonderful way to engage with your writing friends in a totally new way. Plus, it's actually quite humbling to be invited into the creative process of another artist, even if it is only in a small way. I mean, what higher honor is there than helping another writer get that little bit closer to publication? Plus, and here's a nifty little secret, when you beta read for someone else, it actually makes your own writing better because you're able to identify when something isn't working, or you recognize weaknesses that they have in their writing that you also have. Beta reading is just one more way for you to improve your craft and knowledge of writing. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Have you done much beta reading in the past? What tips and tricks or suggestions do you have for others who would like to beta read for someone else? Or have you had people beta read your work and you kind of wish they had done it differently? Leave your comment below and tell me all about it because I'd love to hear it. Now, if you'd like even more writing advice, you can, of course, watch the other videos on this channel or head to taraeast.com and dive into the archives. While you're there, be sure to join my email newsletter, link in the description box below. When you do, I'll send you a free gift, which is a video training called The Follow-Through Formula, How to Complete a Long-Term Writing Project. You'll also receive a newsletter in your inbox every Thursday morning, which contains juicy resources I've discovered that week, a little note by me, a cool writing quote, and some other little goodies I only share via email. I hope you're having a fantastic week and that you're getting lots of writing done, because the world actually could do with some more books. Stay safe, stay calm, and keep writing, and I'll see you again next week.